Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our session on mentorship and building your board of directors. My name is Patience Whitworth, and I was inducted into the Mabel G. Freeman chapter of Mortarboard at Ohio State in 2003. I'm a volunteer for Mortarboard and serve as our national vice president, which just means I have the best role on national council because I get to work most directly with our section coordinators and active collegiate members. When I'm not volunteering for Mortarboard in my spare time, if you will, I work in the provost office at Carnegie Mellon University, where I'm responsible for overseeing our student success initiatives. Trish, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi there, I'm Trish Maxwell, Director of Collegiate Success in the Mortarboard National Office. I've been with Mortarboard for about 5 months now, so really excited to be here. Got to meet some amazing student leaders that are your outgoing officers, and I'm really excited to work with this new group from start to finish. So thank you for being here and welcome.
All right. Well, to get us kicked off tonight, I want to say we hope to use the chat feature as much as possible during this session. So the SCs who just signed up to watch it, your job just got a little bit bigger. Let me just say thank you to those who are here today and who are willing to get the conversation going. But if you ask questions or at any time interject into the chat, we have some folks watching the chat who can stop us and we can make a pause. But also, we hope that also you'll read it to kind of find themes and other things for some of the participation that we want. So let's give the chat a try a little bit, make sure it works. I would love for you to think of a mentor you've had in your life. It doesn't have to be a formal relationship. You can think of somebody who maybe is a family member or someone that you've looked up to and that you've really loved the way your interactions with them drove you, maybe made you more introspective or inspired. For me, the first mentor in my life was my grandmother. She loved me fiercely, and I always thought I was the center of her whole world. That said, I think I got my work ethic from her, because if I were sitting down when I could be helping or be active or be helping someone else, or the worst then in our household, if I said I was bored, she had an endless amount of chores that would make me unbored immediately and make sure that I was helping everyone around me. And so if I were participating in this exercise, I would say one characteristic of my grandmother, who is my mentor, was her fierce love and the way she showed me my own potential. So give it a second and let's read some of the chats that come through.
I love how you said they never made me feel like I was asking dumb questions, right? That's so important. I like that.
I see a lot about mentors helping you believe in yourself and your potential, but also having a lot of support and empathy in it as well. Right, I love this.
Integrity, honesty.
I like that Alexander went to the same school I did with my mentor, of real, genuine, and strict. All right. I hope that you can think about what are the traits of that mentor that made you really be responsive, and what are the traits of other folks in your life that haven't been as encouraging. And I think what we want to talk about today is how you can think about mentorship and the benefits to you. But let's start at the top and let's talk about why mentors matter. As a professional development session, you may be wondering, why are we talking in such a formal way about mentoring? You may be asking yourselves, don't these relationships happen organically? And I hope one takeaway that you'll have from this session is yes and no. But if you put intentionality around it, whether it be an organic or a sought out mentor, it's going to make a world of difference in your future professional career and your personal life. There is a pile of research that shows the benefit of mentorship. We could actually spend the next 2 hours digging into that, but we're just going to highlight the fact that if you have the right fit and purpose behind your relationship, it can lead to improved career satisfaction and meaningful interpersonal support. I'm sure that many of you, if I were to ask you, think about when you have something tough coming up in school, something tough coming up in your personal life, you have that friend or mentor who's your sounding board. I'll tell you that for me, I have a friend who loves to walk every morning between 6:30 and 7:30, and she's my person. She's also a captive audience between 6:30 and 7:30 every morning. I can call her. And she's the person that when I have a career opportunity or a really tricky decision at work or something in my personal relationships that I want to talk through, or frankly, how should I dress for this very specific meeting that's happening this afternoon? She's my person. I call her in the morning and I can get advice on that. It's really helpful. And you can also rely on mentors for your career advice. I know for me, when I was negotiating my first job, and by that I mean I said, thank you, I accept that salary and I'll do everything you asked me to do. It would have been really helpful to have someone who I could have talked to that could say, help me lean into the uncomfortableness that is that conversation, to help me walk through kind of what is it like to accept your first job, bounce some ideas off of them, maybe give me more confidence. Don't do it the way I did it. But finally, I would also say staying informed about the industry that you're working in, the future of work in your career. But I also would add understanding the organizational culture of where you are. Finding someone who truly loves where you're working or truly loves the place that you're in and who you can ask questions of is just such an invaluable thing to build. So as I said, this just scratches the surface of the benefits of mentoring. But I wonder if you could put in chat, what are some of the benefits of mentoring that you've had that are missing from this list? And as you do that, we'll wait for that to happen a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to Trish to talk about what are the qualities of a good mentor and the qualities of a good mentee.
Yeah, I think, we hear a lot like any publicity is good publicity, right? And I don't think that's at all the case for mentors. Like there are bad mentors and there are bad mentees. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about, what's a good mentor? What qualities do they have? And what's a good mentee? And how can you be a good mentee? So Patience, can you hit me with the next slide? Thanks. So looking at the qualities of a good mentor, and these are a lot of the things you already dropped in chat, right? They're self-aware. They're empathetic, they're passionate, they care about other people, they want to help other people. They're active listeners. And I feel like the more I go in my career, the more I realize how important active listening is. Like anybody can listen, but it's the active piece that's really important. So yes, do they hear you? But when someone, when you're talking, they're completely listening to you and they're not thinking, okay, what am I going to say next in my head? Or what's on my to-do list? Or I have to get peanut butter at the grocery store. Like they are in that conversation fully. And that's really an amazing thing. So looking for someone who is an active listener. Jackie and a few other people mentioned, giving that honest and candid feedback, whether you want it or not, right? That's really important. And then someone I think that also understands the value of mentorship for both the mentor and mentee. I think a lot of times, especially young professionals think, well, I'm just going to be a burden on this seasoned person, or I don't want to bother them. But it's not about that at all. Mentorship is a two-way street. And you bring things to the table and they bring things to the table. And it's about figuring out that balance and how you can help them and they can help you. So when you're thinking about, okay, let's say you land this amazing mentor, how do I be a good mentee and not screw this up, right? So some of the qualities, again, going back to that active listening, really listening to what they're saying and asking thoughtful questions, taking the initiative. So they're probably pretty busy, as we all are, right? But maybe you're the one to set up that meeting, or you're the one to kind of reach out, taking the initiative to kind of help that relationship. Being open-minded to different perspectives. I'm always a fan of getting mentors that are completely different than I am, right? Like I know my own perspective. Let's find some other people who have a different perspective to help change mine. Be open about your struggles. And I think this one's really important. And a lot of times it's hard to be vulnerable, right? But the more open you are with your struggles, like if you say to your mentor, if you and your mentor are talking about, getting involved in more things and you've got something else going on, sometimes it's helpful to say, look, I have a family member who's really sick and I spend a lot of time caring for them. I can't add that on right now. What else could I do? So being open is important. Showing your gratitude. I'm a huge fan of handwritten thank you notes. I think they're far underutilized. But in showing your gratitude whenever you can, I think is important. Setting clear goals, saying, why am I here? Why are they here? And, what are the goals of this relationship? Being patient, we all have things going on, our lives change, our schedules change, and sometimes we have to be flexible, right? Sharing your wins. How many people here like to toot their own horn versus how many people don't? And it's a mix, right? So, but I think it's really important to toot your own horn and to share your wins, because your wins are also their wins because they're helping you and they want to hear when you do well. They also want to hear when you're not doing well so they can help. Take time for your mentorship, like any relationships. They take time and you have to invest in the mentorship. Choose your mentor wisely. Don't just pick anybody. Don't pick anybody just for their title. Really look at the person, who they are and, what they bring to the table. And then this last piece of knowing what you bring to the table. Again, it's a two-way street. You have things to offer them and they have things to offer you. One of the first conversations I had with one of my mentors when I was in grad school, it was one of those situations where I formally asked them to be my mentor. And, she immediately said yes. And, I said, well, I don't really know what you get out of this. And she said, I get perspective. Like I've been out of school for 10 years. I don't have the student perspective like you do. So again, there's always something that you bring to the table. So learning and knowing that and knowing how to communicate that is helpful. And we go back to the chat. So think about yourself. What do you bring to the table as a mentee? Drop it in chat. This one's probably a little harder because it's about you, right? Being inquisitive, lots of questions. Different perspectives, yep. Advice on what works well in a classroom. See, strong work ethic. I hear you. Yeah, Alexandra, that's a good point. Like we all have our own perspective, but we also have our own past and history. And there's definitely a place for that in mentoring relationships as well. Excitement about the future. That's important. That's really important, especially for people that have been in their career for a while. And sometimes you get a little tired. So to have a mentee that's really excited about the future and about the career can really reinvigorate you as a professional too. Dedication, ambition. Good. I hope you remember these things and maybe steal a couple of other people's ideas for, these conversations with your mentors. And remember the good things that you bring to the table. Yeah, Wilson, great point. We will save the chat and publish it. We'll put it in the slide deck before we post it so that you can have access to all of these great ideas as well. Thank you. Patients, want to hit the next slide? So there are different types of mentors. So we thought we'd kind of review them as we start to think about building your board of directors or your board of mentors. So there are sponsors. Those are people that promote you for opportunities or advancement. They're people who might be in another meeting and, they're talking about, oh, who should we send to conference? And they'll say, hey, you should send Jackie. She's really great. So they sponsor you, they kind of look out for you and promote you. There are connectors. So someone who's highly, highly networked in their field, and they're really good at making those important introductions. So like I know, Wilson, you said you are, you mentor a lot of people in the tech field. Wilson's a great connector, right? He can connect mentees to other people. He's also a great connector of regions when he was the section coordinator. So that, that's a great mentor relationship as well. There are point experts, your industry leaders or your knowledge base. We all have those people that just seem to know everything about the field. Those are great people to have in your back pocket as well. And then trusted friends. And I think these are some of the ones that happen a little more organically. Like Patience had mentioned her friend that she walks with. One of my closest friends has been a mentor of mine for years, and they're the people who are always there kind of through the highs and lows of your career journey. And it's important to have kind of all of these people on your board of directors.
All right. So Trish, thanks for making the point that the big takeaway is that we have different kinds of mentors that we need in our life, different kinds of room and on our professional board of directors and our personal board of directors. And mentors can all serve different purposes for you. But again, we're going to stress that intentionality here is what helps you develop it into a board of directors. I think if you think about your season of life right now, it's interesting to think about what are your current goals and needs. Are you still exploring career options? Do you know exactly who you are, where you want to go and how you're going to get there? Are you just solid in that plan? Or are there areas in your life you want to focus on further? Do you want to focus on deepening your faith, understanding yourself as a scholar, or taking your athletic skills to the next level? Those are the kinds of goals in your life that can guide your mentoring relationship. And then as Trish said, what qualities do you want to what qualities do you have to make yourself a good mentee? Can you show up and not always expect the mentor to initiate the relationship? Can you share your wins and keep your mentor in the loop? Or do you have something to contribute to a project or an initiative that is important to your mentor? Can you make it go both ways in that way? The values question is a matching issue, I think. And you have to think about it in terms of your core values. It's not style. Like Trisha said, she likes to have mentors who have different styles than her, but the core values is an alignment issue. For example, one of my core values is a real strong belief in restoration. It's really, really important to me in my life that I approach life through a restorative lens and that I surround myself with people who also believe in restoration. If somebody didn't believe in that, we wouldn't maybe be a good match in all settings. But that said, I'm a deeply relational leader. Relationships really matter to me, and they're how I get a lot of things done, professionally and personally. But sometimes I need someone who approaches problems a little bit differently, somebody who's a credible strategic thinker, somebody who is more of a visionary. I often think I'm the kind of person that can take your vision and get it done. But vision is something that I have to stretch to. But if I have mentors that help push me into the vision or help me pull up from the task, those are often the most fulfilling relationships I have. So I'd ask yourself, where are your strengths? And when have you worked in life with folks who've really kind of pushed you to be able to achieve more or think more richly about something? And what qualities did they have that pushed you for that? I would argue, as Trish just did, that's what you want to seek out in this. There's more sort of strengths and styles, but I just want to say you want to think about all the ways that you can find a mentor as well. So on the next thing, I want to talk about finding a mentor. So we talked about how it can be organic. It could be existing relationships or connections that you just have some or add some intentionality to, such as keeping in touch, regular communications, or even formally ask someone to play the role of mentor in your life. You can also find somebody at an event or conference, not unlike the conference we're attending today. It may also be an expert in your field. Here, I always love to tell the story of when I was in my master's program, I read a book that was called Women's Ways of Knowing, and it changed my life because it was one of those pivotal research pieces that started to think about human development through a woman-specific lens and through women's experiences. And when I changed institutions, I was at Ohio State at the time, I went to the University of Vermont. One of the authors was on the faculty there. So I did what any higher ed nerd would do. I went online and I found a first edition of the book. And then I cold walked into her office and knocked on the door. And I said, Dr. Terrell, my name is Patience Whitworth, and your research really has had a big impact on me. Would you please sign this first edition book? Now, this book came out a while before I had talked to her. And the fact that I had it and that I was so excited about our research, we just totally started a friendship that I would have never been able to anticipate. She is a giant in the field of higher education and student affairs. But 5 years later, through trying to stay in touch with her the best I could as appropriate and not be, over the top, when I was writing my dissertation, she was my advisor. And now I can say that Jill Terrell was my advisor, and it was an honor of a lifetime. And it was really just ability to connect with her saying, your work really mattered to me. And I think that that is kind of my tip of kind of connecting to experts in your field. And finally, I would remiss to say that Mortarboard can also be an amazing place to find your mentor. You've heard the history of Mortarboard and the rich connection we have as a national organization. Our alumni network of volunteers has a lot of potential. I see Kara on this call, so she'd love to tell you all about it. And I always like to say, you get out of Mortarboard what you put into it. If you want to show up, do the minimum, get through your senior year, it will be a lovely line on your resume or CV. However, if you want to engage, make the most of your collegiate year, you cannot imagine the impact this organization can have on your life. It's a doorway to engage with your advisors, senior administrators on your school and your schools, alumni of Mortarboard, and you really shouldn't let this opportunity pass you by. So that's my plug for saying that Mortarboard is a great place for being mentors. And I gotta tell you, it's because that was my experience as well. One of my most important, long-standing, and trusted mentor of my life was made through Mortarboard. The wonderful woman you see in the middle of this picture is named Dr. Mabel Freeman. And I'm pretty sure the guy on the right, Craig Evers, would also share a similar story that I'm about to tell you. Craig is the treasurer of the National Foundation, is a longtime friend of mine because of Mortarboard, and I'm pretty sure both of us would count Dr. Freeman as one of our most important mentors. Dr. Freeman started the Honors and Scholars program at Ohio State, and I sat next to her on my first day on campus at a lasagna dinner. This was a tradition in my scholars program in honor of another great Mortarboard, the late Ruth Weimer Mount, who's a former national president and always pulled together the campus community at her kitchen table over lasagna dinners. I was lucky enough to stay connected with Dr. Freeman, and during my undergraduate career, and mostly I just said yes to all the opportunities that she would put in front of me. She would invite me to advisory boards. She'd ask me to do panels when she moved to be the assistant vice president for undergraduate admissions and first year experience. And she always was sort of guiding me towards volunteer opportunities or leadership roles and other things like that. And I also had to be pretty responsive to her feedback. Dr. Freeman has legendary feedback. It's direct, it's very detailed, and it occurs frequently when you're in her orbit. And I never doubted it was coming from a place of high expectations for me and for a commitment to delivering it so that I could learn and grow as a human being. And I have to say, I was lucky enough to just continue to say yes to many of the opportunities that Dr. Freeman put forward to me. I'm actually still saying yes to her. When I graduated from undergrad, I had a plan since middle school that I was going to go to law school. I was an admitted student to law school, and she pushed pause on me and said, why don't you just give working in higher education 2 years? You'll rest, you'll restore yourself, and then you can go on to law school and I'll bless you. But why don't you just take a little bit of a break, Patience? really behind that, she knew law school was an awful fit for me. And now she was just trying to get me to buy 2 years so that I wouldn't go and make a mistake in law school. And I have spent the last 20 years as a higher education administrator, and I absolutely love my career. So in many ways, this happened. Dr. Freeman encouraged me just to pause, and that was really important to me. I said yes to Dr. Freeman when I was enjoying my work as assistant dean, felt pretty good about my career, and she gave me a call and said, it's time to go get that PhD. And without her prodding, I would have never had the opportunity to work with Dr. Terrell. And I said yes to Dr. Freeman's grace and kindness countless times, especially in a moment in my life when I was headed down a path in my personal life that was not aligned with my core values and that was not going to end well for me personally or professionally. And her guidance has always made all the difference for me. I could gush about her all evening, but she is absolutely the reason I joined Mortarboard. And I have to say, since becoming involved, I have met many amazing leaders that have shared the values and qualities that I found impactful through my relationship with Dr. Freeman. Those who met tonight, like Kay McKenzie on the alumni panel that we had, Katie Chick, Sally Stedman, Cass Lucas, Captain Sally Wallington, and even Craig, if I'm really forced to say it. They have had a tremendous impact on my life through Mortarboard. So Trish, what would you add to this, or members of the conference advisory board or other section coordinators add to this kind of point?
Yeah, that's a great, wow, you said so many good things there, Patience. I'm going to add an observation. So I've worked in higher ed and in the field of honor societies for close to 2 decades now. And, I've been with Mortarboard for 5 months, and I'm so floored by the caliber of people that I meet. The volunteers, the staff, the students, like Mortarboard people are just incredibly different. So, Patience, when you talk about how many of your mentors and the great mentors that you've met through Mortarboard, like that doesn't surprise me at all. Because there's just such an amazing group of people. And, as whether you choose as students to get involved, just a little bit and kind of be involved on campus, you'll run into other students, you'll run into hopefully some alumni helping with events on campus. And if you choose to get involved further, that'll only deepen. And I think you'll understand, all that entails. But I understand why. You've met so many great mentors in Mortarboard, and I hope for the students here and the young professionals that you all capitalize on that as well.
I would also hop in real quick and add that mentorship is generational. So what you give, it's a great time to, once you reach a certain point, to give back. And I think that as a grad student, I think that's a great piece. 2 years ago, I was at this conference and I learned from lawyers. And then now I'm a law student and I can help students who, I'm still learning from lawyers, but I can help students who are applying to law school. So I think it's always a good time to reflect and take a moment on what you've learned from a mentor and think about how you can pass it down. Because I think a lot of things like that are generational chains. So like Patience is a great mentor to all of the SCs, and that comes from the mentorship that she's received. So always remember to give it back.
A great point, Katie. And I'm also a big fan of, I guess you would almost call it reverse mentoring. Like I'm starting to assemble a panel of mentors that are newer in their career because I want that fresh perspective. And, I think they have a lot of things to offer me as a growing professional. So yeah, I think you're right, Katie. It is very timely, but not only for young professionals, more seasoned ones as well. Anybody else want to talk about a mentor experience they have or a mentor that they have and, what that relationship looks like?
I will.
Yeah, you go.
Hi, my name is Tamika. My mentor experience was when I decided to try to do our sorry. Sorry, of course, my dogs picked that moment to share their own feelings. But I was going to say that my experience with a mentor came when I decided to join our summer undergraduate research program. And I was paired with a mentor who I had been a student of previously. Dr. Estella Chisnick. And at first, I was just thought it was just me helping her on a research project. Sorry. On a research project. But afterwards, she still continued to mentor me, and it was her. I would like to say I have never ever volunteered to speak publicly on purpose. And it was her who would push me. We would talk about my goals and what I want to do after I graduate. And she started telling me the steps that I needed to take. And before I knew it, she had convinced me to sign up to give our presentation, our research presentation at our annual school-wide research symposium, which was something I had never, ever considered, even thought possible. And I wound up doing it. Unfortunately, she couldn't be there that day, but she had given me so many opportunities prior to it to practice and give the presentation in other avenues, even coming into her classroom to present there, that by the time I did the research symposium, I wound up winning the Dean's Award for my research project. And it was incredible because I hadn't even considered signing up for an event like that, much less even being considered for a win. So a mentor can do some amazing things in your life and show you that you're capable of so much more.
That's great, Tamika. Thank you. We have time for like one more person to share if you want to. If not, we can move forward.
I was just going to add really quick. I got some good advice from somebody too that, like, of course, a mentor that isn't kind of an established relationship is good, but like there are people that you just kind of model your life after that act as kind of like a far away mentor. So like I used to nanny for this woman who's like a high level VP at some company, and like I just kind of watched the way she worked and like how her lifestyle was and sort of like molded some pieces, like where I go to school or how often I go to school, these sorts of things, even like what I eat, that sort of stuff too. So just kind of like watching from a distance. And I don't know that she knows, but I definitely have been watching and consider her at least on my board of directors because it helps kind of like guide my path. So.
Jackie, thanks. Kara.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what Patience said, that if anybody is entering a new situation for them, you're going to grad school, you're going to a new school, you're moving to a new city, and you say, I want to meet some mortarboard alums who might be in my field, who might be at my new place of employment, who are going to be at my school, just reach out to me. That's my job. I'm here to help you find those people and make those connections. So it's one of the most important benefits that you have as a member of Mortarboard. And so I encourage you to take advantage of it.
She's really, really good at her job too. So definitely call Kara. Okay, Patience, let's do the last slide. Okay, so how do you ask somebody to be your mentor? Sometimes it happens organically, like we talked about, and sometimes you kind of need to do that formal ask. And it's always really nerve-wracking, or at least I find it kind of nerve-wracking. Fear of rejection, inadequacies, that type of a thing. But always helps to start with an email. You never know kind of what people have going on in their day. So just shoot them an email, and very professional, obviously, and say, I'm interested in being a mentor. Here are my goals as a mentee. Here's why I think we'd be a good pair. Here's what I bring to the table, and then invite them to a meeting. If you're nearby, face-to-face is helpful, but if not, or if you prefer online, that could work too. And meet with them and talk to them about what that relationship might look like. I think mentor relationships can take all different forms. Like some mentors will only ever want to meet with you in person. Some you might live on the opposite side of the country with and you'll Zoom with. I have one of the mentors that I work with, we only text. I don't know the last time I ever verbally spoke to them, but we text all the time. So, kind of talking about what those preferred communication methods are and, figuring out what that looks like. And then again, always showing gratitude for your mentors. And hopefully they will do the same for you. So we're going to leave you with this. before you kind of leave for the day, is to think about your board of directors. And maybe you only have one mentor yet, and you're thinking about building your board of directors, or maybe you already have a board of directors, but you didn't really think of it that way. And you're like, oh, wait, I do have a board of directors, which is what I realized when I started doing, research on this topic. But think about, who do you have? Who's at the table? Who's there to help? What skills do they bring? And once you kind of look at them across the spectrum, what do you need? What's missing? Where do you want to go in your life that you might be able to find someone to help you get there? For me, work-life balance is something I struggled with. So finding a mentor that can help me get there was really important to me. And then who comes to mind as someone to approach? Maybe you already have a list of people you'd like to connect with. Maybe you have no idea. And that's where, networks like Mortarboard are really helpful, because you can say, hey, Kara, I'd love to have a mentor that, is in immigration law, but I don't know anybody. Do you know anybody? And, Kara can help connect. So think about that. Think about how Mortarboard can help. The whole national office is here to help you. National leaders are here to help, and especially, as Kara mentioned, with all of her connections with the alumni.